And now from the studios of DC Concerts, your host interviewing the greatest names in racing, as featured in over 30 magazines as seen on Car Crazy TV, NASCAR's Master Mechanics Award, Legions of Honor Award Racing's Hall of Fame, Lifetime Achievement Award, multi-time Cars magazine winner, from NASCAR to NHRA Pro Stock, let's welcome, Sam Auxier Jr.
All right, folks, we're back after 5 years of not being on the air for various reasons. But anyway, I'm back. Going to have to knock the rust off of here a little bit, but we'll get her done. And we have a great, to start off, one of the greatest interviews of anyone that we probably could try to get. A guy that's been in NHRA for at least 27 years, but that's just the start. He's Hall of Fame at Division I, Hall of Fame Atco, New Jersey, Dragway, Maple Grove Hall of Fame, and was recently selected as a member of the Eastern Motorsports Press Association. So great credentials. So let's get on with the show here, and I hope I don't screw it up too bad, you know. Bob, welcome.
Hey there. How are you doing? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Well, try and keep it together.
It's a goal.
It's a goal, yeah, right. We're trying. I don't have the expertise you've had for all these years, so anyway.
Well, I can't drive a 4-speed Pro Stock car, so we're even.
There you go. God, it's great to see you. It's been such a long time. I did see you at Harrisburg and Mecum auction, but outside of that, race car wise, it's been a while. Today, what are you up to today? And then we're going to drop back a little ways. So,
well, I spent a lot of time digging into the history of NHRA. As you know, I love the sport. I worked the NHRA national races for so many years, and there's so much of the history of the sport that is not recorded for some reason or another.
Right.
And I happen to have a lot of time, and I have a lot of resources. So I go back and I spend a lot of time trying to fill in qualifiers, elimination rounds, non-qualifiers from divisional races back in the early 60s, back through the national events. And it keeps me pretty busy. I really enjoy when you can find a little nugget that you can put into the record books, you know. And,
right.
It really is quite a challenge. For whatever reason, the record keeping for NHRA left a little bit to be desired, even going into the early and mid 70s. So
right.
It's nice to be able to find that out. And I spend a lot of time, I shouldn't say a lot of time, but I spend time with people who will call me up and say, oh, my dad did this or my grandfather did that. And, you know, I think he won a race at, Quaker City Dragway back in 1964, but I have no record of it. Can you help me out? And so I'll go back and I'll fill in those blanks. And I love the quest. I love the hunt to find out little, tidbits here and there. And so that keeps me pretty busy. I've documented over 25,000 stories from National Dragster, Drag News, Carcraft, Hot Rod, all the magazines, Cars Magazine. Your name keeps coming up a lot in the stuff from back in the 60s and early 70s. And every time I get it, I say, I know that guy. So
yeah, right.
That keeps me pretty active. I enjoy doing it.
Say, I know that loser.
I never said that.
I never said that. To me, anyway. Yeah. Bob, how did you ever get started around drag racing? I mean, what drove you there versus anything else?
Well, it's funny what you say. What drove me there and why I do it are the same thing. A friend of mine wanted to go to the drag races back in 1964, and his father took us there. And I got out, and I'll never forget getting out of the car, walking to the track, and then just seeing the track just go in a straight line. And I went, well, this is going to be boring. And then I watched the first two cars go down the track, and it was a marvelous thing. I really enjoyed it. And then in 1966, that same fella had a 1965 Plymouth, and we drove to the track in that, and we all figured we're going to make this great race team. And we all took turns driving the car to see who could be the best driver. And I had the worst elapsed time, so they figured, well, you can't drive it. and the car was smoking at the time. They told me to go find out what was smoking under the hood, and I couldn't find the hood latch and open the hood. So I said, well, you can't drive it and you can't work on it. And just as I was doing that, they announced that, the track was looking for a track announcer. And my friends said, why don't you go up and try that out? And I did that, and I never drove, and I never became a mechanic after that. And, I started announcing. That was in April of 1966.
Wow. Well, it worked out pretty good,
It really was. Having no other appreciable skills, it worked out well for me.
Wow. So it's 27 years at NHRA announcing. And then you have all these others, AHRA, IHRA. And another one that I think a lot of people today, racers today, and spectators, do not realize that NASCAR actually had a drag racing division. And it was quite popular, and it was they had a great purse that they paid. Of course, I think it only lasted, 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah, it lasted a couple of years. You remember that because you ran the circuit back then.
Yeah, right.
The reason ATCO was looking for an announcer is because their announcer, Jack Muselli at the time, who became known as ATCO Jack to everybody,
right,
got hired to go and announce the NASCAR races. And they, it was going down to DeLand, Florida. They had it in Pittsburgh. They had Dragway 42. And while he was going to be away, they needed somebody to fill in, and that's when I did it. So the first big race I did was they had the 67 NASCAR finals at ATCO.
Right.
I'd have a big poster in my room from that race. So I did the NASCAR stuff. With the AHRA stuff, I did the National Challenge race in 1972 in Tulsa that was there, and I did IHRA for the first 10 years of their national events, and all the while I was still doing the NHRA divisional races at ATCO. They used to have the final division race for the country there, and it was great because all the drivers who needed points would come to ATCO. So we got to see a lot of the West Coast drivers who would never otherwise come east, but needed points, would race at the ATCO points race. But yeah, you remember when you ran the NASCAR stuff, they had that ultra stock thing. They weighed 2,700 pounds, 3,000 pounds, 3,200 pounds, and it was it was neat. I mean, the NASCAR program was nice. They had a great Top Fuel program. Connie ran it. Val Laporte, a lot of a lot of the great teams from the East Coast, ran that circuit. So that was nice. But eventually, I guess NASCAR decided, to put all their eggs into one basket and get out of the drag racing. Ed Witzberger wound up basically, I think, owning the NASCAR series, and it flattened around for a couple of years after that. But their ultra stock thing was actually the forerunner of the pro stock class, as you know.
Exactly.
You there.
It was very popular with us, and because it did have a weight break and not so much the other technical aspects of it. So everybody got to run, so to speak, and the rules were a little more lax than NHRA was on it, but it really
had the 2,700 pounds and 3,032, and I mean. A lot of Chick Danino ran it, Dave Lyle ran it, Wayne Gap ran it. So that's pretty good launching pad for a lot of racers.
I think Bill Jenkins ran it too. I mean, we all did. And it was really just we thought it would go on forever. Obviously, it didn't, but we really enjoyed it, and it was what I thought was fair competition. With the weight breaks and the Hemis and the wedges and all that. So.
And 4 speeds.
Exactly. 4 speeds. not the things they got today that, unfortunately, well, I guess, you couldn't drive it unless you had it. So, I mean, that's quite obvious on that. So, but anyway, in all that time, you have hung in there. I don't know if you ever thought of trying something else or not, but look at the events that you've announced at, and all that time, and it must be. And you also did the TNN and the ESPN shows.
TNN and ESPN, and I did the sportsman shows for probably 15 years with NHRA, especially featuring the alcohol cars and the other sportsman cars.
Right.
And I did some of the original live shows with when the National Network was doing them, the old Diamond P Sports. Shows and everything. It was all fun. It was great. I was very, very fortunate. And as for finding, you said thinking about doing something else. I thought about it, and then I figured can't do anything else. So,
You never thought switching to NASCAR or anything like that?
No.
No.
I guess it's funny. If I were to talk to somebody else today, if a kid came to me and said, what would your advice be? I would say to broad base a little bit,
Yeah.
learn a little bit about the NASCAR, the sprint cars, the sports cars, and stuff, because it opens up, more avenues for you, especially now that
Sure.
there's so many TV channels and they're doing so many other forms of motorsports,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, when I got started, though, I mean, there was drag racing and there was NASCAR, basically, and that was
all.
it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you pay attention to NHRA today and NASCAR
Yeah, I do.
today? Or
But not NASCAR as much. I really have never followed NASCAR. In fact, it's funny, this weekend, I spin around the dial and saw one of the NASCAR races, and they were talking about, segment number 1 and segment number 2, and I had no idea how it worked, so I just gave up on it.
Right.
The drag racing is pretty simple stuff, and
Yeah.
so you go that. But I still follow it because I still provide all the stats for their TV shows. I've created a pretty good database of the racers. So I did it when ESPN was running, and I do it now with Fox. So I provide a lot of the statistical information, who ran who, head to head, number ones, low ETs, top speeds, all this stuff. I probably have the best collection of data from the NHRA national races anybody. So that keeps me busy.
I was going to say, so you really haven't stopped working. You're still going.
I've just stopped traveling.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I guess that's the worst part.
Yeah,
But,
when I traveled, Sam, I really didn't mind it. I mean, I traveled 125,000 miles a year and didn't mind it at all. But now the thought of getting back onto an airplane and traveling, I'll do 2, maybe 3 events during the year. I'll go to Bowling Green to help out with the hot rod reunion there.
Yeah.
I'll go to Bakersfield, maybe. I have gone there.
Right.
And I go to Dallas when they have the big charity auction for the Drag Racing Association of Women to help the injured racers. I go down there every year. So those are the 3 things that I will probably do this year. Of course, didn't do them last year because of all the restrictions.
Is there anything you look at drag racing today? Is there anything if you could turn a magic switch, is there anything you would change or?
Yeah, put 4 speeds back in the pro stock cars. I mean, at least
I would say that.
If you were to ask, I mean, I enjoyed that because at that time, just because the guy got off the starting line first didn't guarantee he was going to win the race.
Exactly.
Things can happen with the 4 speeds, and it was pretty great racing, and it put a lot of emphasis on the driver. Not to say that driving the car now, getting off the starting line, and keeping it straight and hitting your shift points isn't important.
Right.
When you had that 4-speed and had to put the clutch in, if you missed, the other guy was going to blow by you.
Exactly.
But, I'd certainly, if I had to go back, I would certainly race quarter mile. I mean, I think we were all grew up on quarter mile drag racing. I know the reasons why they shortened it, and in fact, whether it's fact or fiction, the reason they ran quarter mile initially was because back in the late 50s, early 60s, some of the cars actually started out running the tracks that they had at that time. So they needed a uniform length and figured a quarter mile was pretty much it. But no matter what you say about it, nobody is coming to the races now because they're 1,000 feet. So, I thought last year when they had the big anniversary for Gainesville, I thought, boy, if you want to make this the biggest race ever, make Gainesville a quarter mile. And, you'll have the biggest thing you've ever had. But
I think that knocking the power out of them, I think would have been of course, I say that with ease, but knocking the power out of them and running a quarter mile would have been my choice. But I guess obviously there were some other reasons why they did not do that. But
but things change, things evolve, and But I would like to see a lot more emphasis on the driver and a lot more innovation. I mean, back in the early 70s, these races that I'm tracking down, I mean, you had twin engine cars and cars with wings on the side and wings backwards and stuff like that, and it was great, the ingenuity part. I just think one of the problems with it now is that if you took the primered paint off of every car out there, it'd be hard to tell John Force from Terry Haddock, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Back then you had the twin engine cars and big wings and narrow rear ends and
Tommy Ivo,
all the innovative stuff that made the sport great. But
but
that horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, that was gone. It's no sense trying to even catch up with that one.
Yeah.
So, but you also wait a minute. Yeah, you also did the Bob's Tales column for National Dragster for 15 years.
Yeah, I wrote that for quite a while. It was a fun time, little tongue in cheek article in the National Dragster, and I was really surprised when it came out how many people read it and responded to it.
Yeah,
it had a nice little quirky quirky bit to it.
Sure.
And one of the funniest parts about it, I thought, was at the end. I always had 10 names in it that all had something to do with one another, and I would also often have people going, "Oh, I can't wait to get my name in Bobtails. Can't wait to get my name in Bobtails." I keep reading it,
Right.
And people that told me that's the reason they pick up National Drag, so they read it. It was a nice, like I said, little tongue in cheek.
Right.
Got to touch on a lot of racers, a lot of interesting things, and I never thought when I wrote the first article that it would go on for, as long as it did. But it was a nice little extra thing for me to do, and really touch with a lot of people. In fact, I mentioned the Drag Racing Association of Women that raises money for injured racers. Well, one time I had a fundraiser. I always ran into people that were climbing Mount Everest or running marathons or whatever, and I had a fundraiser. It was called "Sit on the Couch for a Cause," and the more money I raised, the longer I sat on the couch, and I raised $5,500 to help the injured racers, and never got off my butt. So
there you go.
That's a fun article.
Good deal.
Yeah, it was nice. Didn't have to do anything.
That every day.
Yeah.
God, geez. Something I want to mention before I get any further and I forget. In my start on the radio deal, I guess it was somewhere around 2011, 2012 or something like that. But I got a call one day from Tom McEwen out of the clear blue, and I'd never really met face to face with Tom McEwen. And he says, "Do you have pencil and paper there?" And I'm going like, "What in the world is he asking me that for?" Pencil and paper. Yeah, I can still write. So anyway, he spews off all these names, and of course, I believe one of your numbers were in there. So he really started me out. I owe him a lot for helping me there and getting all those numbers that nobody wanted a call from me on. So that's true.
Tom was a great guy. I mean, I emceed his celebration of life after he passed out in California.
Oh, did you?
It was like a who's who of drag racing there, And
I bet.
It's funny. After that event, I'll never forget, I must have had 15, 20 people come up and say, "Oh, I meant to call Tom. I meant to call Tom,"
I know. Yeah.
And when I went to Bakersfield that year, at the end of the year, I remember saying, "If you want to call somebody, call them.
Right.
Don't wait until they pass and say, I meant to call them."
Right. I know.
And still to this day, I probably get, 1 or 2 calls a month from somebody saying, "Hey, I'm just calling somebody. I remember what you said out there." But his celebration of life was just, as good as something like that can be.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was quite a guy. Glad he could help you out.
Oh my gosh. I just, I was really blown away when he called me because it was tough getting into your foot in the door with a lot of these people and drivers and owners and everything else. And so, his help was enormous and it just spread from there. So,
so let me ask you a question. What motivated you to get back into doing the show again?
I miss it. I miss the people, the drag racing people, and I do some NASCAR too, but it's missing that camaraderie with people like you and all the other ones out there. That's it's hard work. It's not easy work. It's not an easy game that a lot of people think it is. Yeah. And so it's just I really I hope I can. This is the first one back, and
But nobody else answered your phone?
Do I? No, phone's not ringing yet.
Hey, Bob answered. Let's talk to him.
Right, exactly. I got to tell this story on Bob Mcclure. He lives out in Hawaii. And I don't know if you remember Bob or not. He's one of the photographers for many, many years.
Well, it's funny you say that when you ask what I'm doing. He's writing a book now on Butch Leal.
Right.
And I'm helping him with a lot of the race results for Butch.
Right.
I was doing that right before you called, as a matter of fact, going back to his modified days. Anyway, yeah, so go ahead.
I felt bad for him. And he said, I can't fix the computer. He says, the screen is, for some reason, when I was looking at him, it was like the camera was smudged over. Uh-huh. So I said, well, Bob, take some alcohol and clean the camera off. Well, he takes that off. It doesn't clean it. Doesn't help it. So I said, listen, Bob, these cameras are cheap. I said, I'll have one sent right to you. Boy. So I sent him one over there, and he tries to hook it up. And, of course, it's only got one wire. So how bad can it be? But anyway, Bob plugs it in, and he's got echo like crazy. And I tried to explain to him about going down to the little horn down in the right-hand corner and right-clicking that and going up and fixing it, but he couldn't follow it. So I said, well, we'll go down the street or road or wherever you live and find a Staples or something. They can fix it in about 1 minute, Well, I'll get there, So I said, I haven't heard back from him. I guess he never got down the road, They sent me a book of his. Shoot, I don't have it in front of me here.
The Tasca book?
No, the newest one he's got is the American Speed Shop.
Oh, yeah. He was working on that for a while.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's finally out, and what is that?
CarTech?
Yeah, CarTech sent me one copy of it. But, of course, we've never done a show about it. So, anyway.
It's amazing because the research that went into that book, and I know what he did on the Tasca book because I read that. I thought that was just wonderful. I mean, I called him up after I got a copy, and I said, boy, the research in this, the detail, the history in this was really amazing.
Yeah.
And now he's doing I didn't know that he had finished the Speed Shop book because he said trying to track down some of those old Speed Shop people was just almost impossible.
Right. Yeah.
And now he's doing the Butch Leal book, but he does marvelous work. Him and
he does.
Jeff Skunkert does a lot of great books with CarTech. He just finished one on the Motown Missile team and did one on the Hemis and stuff. I love getting that stuff. I have all those books in my book room. I love reading that stuff.
Yeah, I've got tons of them, and it's amazing. We had the Speed Shop, of course, Maryland High Performance Sales,
right?
And of course, I had some pictures and all, luckily, and I sent him those. And he did use them, and so it come out nice, So
there are a couple of big speed shops down your way, weren't there?
Oh yeah, there was Douglas Speed Shop, and there was
Big Ed's was around you.
Big Ed's was around the Beltway. Yeah, he was just short ways around there, and I think Speed Unlimited. I believe they're still there.
I think the guy that I used to work the IHRA races with, Ralph Hamilton. I don't know if you remember him or not. He worked a lot of the West Coast tracks, then moved to Maryland and stuff. And he worked at might have been Big Ed's, but he always talked about working at one of the speed shops down there, putting on the car show in Washington and stuff. So yeah, but that was a tough book for Bob to do because just trying to track down so many of those older people. I mean, he can find Butch Leal. He knows where Leal is.
Right, exactly.
The guys from Mid-Atlantic Speed Shop or something was a tough job. He does great work.
Yeah, he did beautiful job on the book. It looks great, and it's I think it's released now to the public, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But I hope so. But I was going to give him a kick on the air for it, So yeah, he's a good guy. God, he works hard at it.
Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of time and effort that goes into those books. So good for him for keeping that kind of stuff alive.
Oh yeah, it's how do you start digging up this information? It's crazy, to find speed shops because those people, most of them are gone.
Exactly. Yeah, I tried to track down, the Steve Kanuka Speed Shop and Ben Pillows and them up here, and it was a tough process.
Yeah, it's just not readily available.
Well, if he ever gets a camera, get him on the show because he got some great stories to tell.
I know he does. I've had him on before. I had him on at Carlisle, but that's been a long time ago.
Just tell him, hey, if Fry can do it, you can do it.
You can do it. That's right.
I talked to him ahead of time. I said, I don't know how to work this stuff. He said, there's nothing to it. So, okay.
Yeah, right. And when I contacted the guy at Car Tech, and he said Bob is not going to be able to connect that stuff. I said, well, I'm trying to help him,
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. I said, can't be 201 wire. But God, no, he's a great guy. So let's see, NHRA is this coming weekend. Is that correct? Or is that Atlanta?
No, that's a couple of weeks away.
Is it 2 weeks away?
They've got the 4-wide race coming up out in Las Vegas in I think 3 weeks, and then the Atlanta races after that they just announced it's going to be the last national event ever at the Atlanta track. The track's been up for sale,
right?
But they actually announced yesterday, and I can say that I announced the first ever national event there. It was an iTray track. A guy named Gene Bennett owned the track, and when iTray was running, they got it and sanctioned it, and I was working. In fact, Ralph Hamilton was with me. We worked down there when the track first opened.
God, yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. It's a tough deal for NHRA though now, just trying to find states and facilities we can run. Everybody's in the same situation, but they survived last year, so I guess they can survive anything.
Yeah, I was going to say if they made it through last year, I think they'll probably do it. What the heck else we got here, Bob? What else we have not touched on yet?
I didn't show you pictures of my grandkids or anything like that yet. So
okay, I've only got one grand, and she just had so I guess I'm a great granddad, whatever. So,
do you have any of your old cars? Well, I'll ask you.
I have found every one but the '64 AFX Comet. I cannot find that car.
And you have the other ones?
The other ones I found. The only one that I can say, or two, I can say that are completed cars, restoration-wise, is the '69 Mustang, which was probably the most successful ultra stock car, that we had, because we won the Cars Magazine meet at Cecil County, where everybody in the world, and that was Bill Jenkins in the final. So that was a really happy time there. And so that car, Bob Lindstrad that owns it, he lives out in Washington State.
Oh, wow.
And he has the car, and he got the car from a guy I know. And he got the car, and he literally just gave me a blank check to get it done. And I went down. There's a place in Cambridge called I'll think of it in a minute. But anyways, a place down there, 40,000 square feet, and they do restoration and paint work and all that stuff. So I took it down there, and they worked on it. Like 9-10 guys every day, because there was a 42-day time to get it done. And I had already done the engine on it. And I also had done the go away. There's a phone. Now it's loud.
That's for me. Tell them I'm busy.
Oh, you're loud. Lovely. Okay. So anyway, we got the car down there, and they worked on it because we were scheduled to be at Carlisle, Pennsylvania at the Ford show. And they finished it in 42 days. And I mean, it was rough, terribly rough. And I had found, this is the other crazy thing. You talk about finding stuff and digging. I had found 2 pictures, Polaroid pictures, that were taken when the car was built. And of course, they were body in whites that Ford had given us. And we literally, if without those pictures, you'd have never got the car done. I mean, I'd had to rely on my memory, which may not be that well. So anyway, they finished it in 42 days and had it at Carlisle. Amazing. Of course, it was a lot of money later, but he was happy. So,
Isn't that nice? So that car's out in Washington State now?
It's out in a museum out there, which I have begged him to let me bring it back here. And he really wants to sell it. I say he really wants to sell it. He'd like to sell it, but he wants a full boatload for it. So I don't know what he's going to do. And
I'll give him a post-dated third-party out-of-state check if he'll take
that. We got one of them.
Sign me up.
It's that car is he put it through Mecum, got it up to 150,000, and he wanted 175,000. So it just
should have taken 150.
That's right, he should have. But I told him, I said, I need the car. If you sell it, I need it here on the East Coast. I said, don't give me that West Coast stuff. I mean, so
right, and let me ask you another question. I always wondered where the Bawani name came from.
It's the three brothers and the sister. It's Bondi Long was the car owner, and his mother. He had a NASCAR team too, and Ned Jarrett drove that car.
Oh.
And one other person, I can't remember who else drove it. But it was Bondi. Let's see, Walter. I can never think of the third, but it was three brothers, two brothers and a sister. But that's where it came from. It's sort of
interesting.
Yeah, everybody in the world said, "Where'd that name come from?"
Yeah,
I said,
some great tribal warrior or something like that.
I know. It's like
I didn't know it was named after Sally.
Right. It's crazy, but that car was that was originally Tasca's car.
Right.
That was original AFX Tasca car, and we did quite well with that car. We won the Cars Magazine meet the year before with that one. So, we did a deal for a year, and then Bondi took it back to South Carolina. So,
you keep mentioning the Cars Magazine meet when you talk about if you could roll back things. I'd like to see the local tracks like the ATCOs and the Cecil counties and capitals and be able to have big spectator meets like they used to. I mean, I know they can't. The costs are prohibitive.
Right.
And I'm not even sure ATCO is going to be a racetrack before we finish this interview,
I was going to ask you about that.
But I love those old events. I announced a lot of those Cars Magazine meets.
Yeah.
They were so cool. And the Supersonic Nationals,
I know.
At Cecil County, so I wish the local tracks could do that. It's tough for those tracks to survive anymore.
It is.
Just making it on their regular weekly programs.
It is. It's tough to get enough income off of them to keep the gates open on them. But it's a shame. It really is. We always think back the way it was, but it's just a crying shame that we don't have that anymore. And the spectators, every time you mention anything to a spectator, they're like, "Oh man, that's what I'd love to see that again."
Yeah.
I get them on my Facebook all the time, wanting want to see that, want to hear about that, and so what can you do? I can't change time. Nope. 75 and 80, they're just, they're closed, and they still do the Motor Trend show where they do the new car testing and all that stuff. They still use 75 and 80 for that. But
see, it's funny. A lot of the tracks closed because of the noise. Now they're going to make all electric cars. You could run them all day long and not make any noise.
There you
tracks
go.
Could open up again.
We could do that,
Yeah.
So. What do you think about that Ford car, the Ford Mustang with the electric?
Those things are breathtaking. I mean, you have stock body cars now running with the dragsters ran.
Yeah,
almost when I first got started in drag racing. I mean,
exactly.
It's breathtaking to see what they do. I talked to several of the guys who put together the Ford Mustang that ran out at Indy last year, and I mean, they were telling me the times that it ran before it went out there, and they said, "You're not going to believe what this thing does." I mean, it's just it's just breathtaking what they can do with technology. The guy ran the dragster 200 miles an hour out there at Tucson earlier this year. First to do that with an electric dragster. So it's amazing. I'm not sure it'd be quite as much fun to announce, but
Yeah, exactly. It didn't rattle the windows at all.
No.
I don't know if Gartler's still messing with the electric thing.
Yeah, but he lost a little bit of the drive for it after the other guy broke the 200-mile-an-hour barrier.
Oh, yeah.
There's,
Yeah. Right.
But I remember when Ohio George came to ATCO, ran his first turbocharged car. It made no noise. I mean, it was so fast, it made no noise, and the fans hated it. I went, wow, this is a technological marvel. Look at what it does. The only thing you heard was the tires spinning when they went to change gears.
Right. I know. God.
The electric cars are amazing. I was talking to my youngest grandson, who's 9 years old, and I said, when you're my age, there won't be any internal combustion engine cars on the track, on the street.
Exactly.
And nobody will be driving them. They'll be self-driven. So,
that's the other thing.
Which is bad, because that would have put guys like me out of business,
Me both. I don't think I could handle that one.
No.
Jeez. Crazy. Jeez. Okay. Well, let's see. I know there's a couple of things I wanted to cover, and I can't.
Well, you still got my number
here. I mean, that's you.
You can always call me back if Mcclure doesn't answer his phone.
That's true. Oh God, no, he always answers his phone. I don't know if it's because it's me or whether it's he's just lonely, So,
He's
but way out there in
Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he got out into Hawaii. I asked him last time. I said, "How in the world did you wind up in Hawaii?" I said, you did all this on tracks around here, and God, I can't even remember how many articles he did for me. I mean,
when I was working and traveling, doing some TV shows for about 3 or 4 years, I got to go to some of the very small tracks that NHRA had.
Yeah,
no national events, no divisionals. I mean, your typical weekly track.
Right.
And I would go there because we'd do a little segment on them on the TV show. And I went to 2 of the tracks in Hawaii. It was great to.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was fun. Bruce Wheeler's still out there too. Remember the old Wheeler dealer car?
Yeah, exactly.
Bruce was out there on the islands and stuff. But yeah, it was pretty cool to get to go over there and see a couple of tracks in Hawaii.
I remember that now. Jeez, yes. Crazy. I always think of Hawaii like being a small island, and you can't get a quarter mile long enough to fit in there.
Well, if you ran off the end of this one track, you'd have been in the ocean. So you didn't have a lot of extra room.
Oh God. I tell you, we ran some tracks in West Virginia that I tell you right now, it was like running off the cliff. It was just horrible. I remember we had one track. It was down in southern part of West Virginia, and the end of the runway they had a net, aircraft net, And I went down there and looked there. They'd have never found you. Wouldn't need no aircraft net. You'd have never seen you again.
Anybody seen Sam?
No, he's gone.
It is funny. We talk about the good old days.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of the drivers, Don Garlitz and some of those guys, and they say when they look back at some of the cars they ran and some of the tracks they drove on, they think we had to be idiots.
I tell you.
What were we thinking?
100%. I tell you right now, I look at some of them and I think we had to be crazy.
Yeah.
And
all we wanted to do was race. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And where you're racing it.
Right.
Gee whiz.
We were down in North Carolina when I'm in Nicholson, and I forget, it was like a 16-car field. And we got up there to run, and we looked down the end of the track, and these people are all the way on the track at the center line. And we're going like, well, what the hell's going on here? So sure enough, we go down through there and they go like park like that. I said, we must be crazy. I said, Did
you run the Superstock Nationals in '65 at York?
Yeah, but I think that was with the 60. That was the Comet.
Yeah, people were making burnouts and patting the cars. They backed up from the burnouts and stuff.
I couldn't. That was the other thing. I mean, we were staging and people were standing beside the car, right beside the car. If it had spit out a drive shaft, it would have wiped out. So anyway, and then you come back to the pits and they said, you know what you were taking off at the RPMs? I said, no, tell me. I didn't look at it.
One regret that I have, friends of mine and I were talking about going up to that race, and then we decided that we didn't want to drive all the way up there. And to this day I went, what could have been?
It could have been was right. It was wild. I'll tell you right now, there was people everywhere. I mean, I don't know. I assume they made money, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that got in there that didn't pay no money.
Yep.
It was absolutely insane on that thing. So, God, well, I know you got a 4:30 deadline, so.
Well, I appreciate you checking in with me. It's always nice to talk with you. I love your backdrop there. I remember going out to Pomona and seeing the mounds up there and people wearing short sleeve shirts down to the track. I'm going, you don't have anything like that here in the East Coast.
No, we don't have nothing close to that. And you're still living in New Jersey, right?
Yep, I live 3 miles from Atco as the crow flies.
You're still there, huh? Okay,
yep.
God.
Well, wish you good luck with the show, Sam. It's going to be nice to have you back.
Well, thank you. We're going to have you back again. I'm sure you got. I'm going to have you back and tell some tales about the crazy things that you seen happen.
the things we can talk about.
Right, the things we can't talk about, but we're going to.
That's it.
So,
Very cool.
Very good. Well, I thank you, Bob. Appreciate it for taking the time, and
my pleasure.
The best of luck, Bob.
Thanks. Good luck with the show.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. Okay. That was a great interview with Bob, and he's just a great individual. He's a great ambassador to our sport, without a doubt. So anyway, that's the end of our first show. And hopefully, if I don't screw up too bad cutting it off, I don't think I'll even have to edit it. So anyway, we thank everyone for stopping in and listening and looking. And this has been a great comeback. We have a whole new broadcast system here now, and I think it's going to work out great. So anyway, thank everyone, and we shall see you down the road here. Thank you.